When it comes to Bigfoot, it seems to be a never-ending string of questions without answers, with very little evidence to even form any sort of theory or speculation to explain any of it. But is it possible that some of the answers to some of our questions have been sitting there all along? How much of an impact has humans had on Bigfoot that has shaped the way they act and behave still to this day? Can we look at historical events of our own past to answer some of these questions that we have? That's what we discuss on this episode of Bigfoot Crossroads. Mr. Tipton, have you had your flu vaccination this year?
I have not, no.
Do you normally get a flu vaccination?
I do not.
That's interesting. I don't get one either. I've never had one that I know of, unless I was given one whenever I was too young to remember. And yeah. I don't ever remember having the flu. Do you?
No, I've never, that I can remember, I've never had the flu. No.
And even though it goes against, science and what they tell us and everything, that's made me kind of paranoid to get one. The fact that I haven't had it and I don't get vaccinated. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm around so many people in construction and working in all types of elements. But I know many, many guys that do get them and 2 months down the road, they don't have the flu, but they're sick.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even tell you the last time I had a major cold, to be honest with you.
It's been a while for me. As a matter of fact, I have noticed, obviously, I quit smoking several years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I've noticed that since I quit smoking and have changed my diet, I get sick a lot less often.
Yeah.
And it's nowhere nearly as bad whenever I do get sick.
Right. Yeah. It for me, if I feel a cold coming on, it's gone in a couple days, and I might get the throat irritation, the stuffy head for a couple days, and bam, it's gone. It's out of there. And I'm the same way. I haven't smoked in years. I take care of myself. I try to. And so, healthy wise, and not getting sick as often as I did when I was eating wrong, not taking care of myself, smoking, all that jazz. But now looking at guys that live that way, and they're constantly sick.
Yeah.
There's always, they've always got something,
It seems to definitely have an effect on your immune system.
Oh, yeah.
And how it reacts to things. Can you imagine, though? I mean, we've all been sick. We've all had colds and stuff. But, imagine if you caught something and you had never experienced that before or ever been sick like that, and you didn't know how to fix it or how to get rid of it or anything else. That's kind of happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're having this conversation, the spread of the new coronavirus,
right,
from China, I guess is where it originated.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. At the same time, I think some people are kind of getting ahead of themselves, in their fear of this disease. I mean, we don't know anything about it, so that's scary.
Sure.
But it seems to be fairly contained, even though it's starting to spread to other places besides China.
Mm-hmm.
So far, I think I read an article today where Australian doctors had replicated the virus, and they're the first ones outside of China to have done so. So
correct.
That's a big step in everything.
Yeah.
But this virus thing got me thinking. And that's why we're here to discuss the possibility that Bigfoot numbers in the United States may have been a lot larger at one point in time, population-wise, and they might hide from us and avoid us so much because of disease and the fear of catching diseases from us.
I agree with that. I've honestly thought that for quite some time, actually. I mean, you're taking what is believed to be, a species that's been around for a very, very, very long time. When you look at what we as people have brought to this country when we started really migrating here, and the diseases that we were bringing with us, wiping out damn near complete cultures just in disease. I believe that we killed off a great amount of the Bigfoot population with diseases that we were introducing to this country.
I agree. I mean, we don't have, obviously, the documentation to prove any of this. This is theory, speculation, sure, opinion, whatever you want to call it. But there are stories, especially through Native American culture, that some tribes or some people at least lived in harmony side by side with the Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. They weren't like an unknown hidden monster or anything. They knew they were there. A lot of tribes' words for them mean the others or the other people, or, they refer them to as people or a tribe.
Right.
And there's even stories of them being in these huge populations. And, the Native Americans, I've even heard, once again, just stories, but I've even heard stories about at one time the Native Americans trading with the Bigfoot, which is kind of interesting if you look at some of the things that people are experiencing now when Bigfoot leave items or seem to leave items for them and stuff.
Right. Right.
But then you're asking yourself, okay, well, if that, spreading disease to Bigfoot, and so does that make them human? Well, not necessarily, because I have learned through reading about the coronavirus that it's part of what's called I'll probably say this wrong, a zoonotic viral disease, which means it started out in animals and genetically mutated until it was able to infect humans.
Yeah.
Because viruses, just like every other thing in the world, will adapt to survive.
Correct. Yeah. And I kind of, there's a lot of men and women that are in the military, and when they go in and they get shot up with all kinds of stuff as they're going through, but when I went over to Ethiopia, and so I had to be vaccinated and I had to get all these shots and stuff. But one of the things, once I was over there, one of the things that they really pounded on us about was no interaction with their animals. So, and reason being is because of this, for this reason, not this disease that we're facing right now, but they carry unknowns. They carry diseases that we don't know anything about. So I could, say something happens and I'm bit, or whatever. I could actually, I could bring that home with me and not know that I'm carrying it, depending on the severity of what it is. I could carry it for, anywhere from a month to 2 months in me before I would show any symptoms, and I could transmit it, to somebody else.
Well, thousands of people.
Yeah. I mean, So that was one of the big things that they told us was, don't interact with the animals while you're over there, because we don't know what you could bring back. So,
which is also interesting because in my reading on this, one of the questions that was asked was, well, what about Native Americans passing disease to Europeans?
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, like, the reason that didn't happen as much, or that they're aware of, is because in the old world, over in Europe and everything, you had people who had domesticated animals, lived in close proximity to their animals in barns and stuff. Right. As opposed to the Native Americans who depended on wild animals and free roaming animals. And over the years, after long periods of times, the Europeans had developed all kinds of immunities against diseases that they were faced with constantly.
Correct.
Being in close proximity to the animals and just facing them and everything. And then whenever they came over here, the Native Americans not only didn't have any immunities to it, but they never had enough time to develop any.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And and once it happened, and a lot of it happened through the trades, trading goods. And, there was no way to stop it at that point. And, it was, I think it was the late 1700s or something like that. Is when it really, really took hold. I mean, we brought them smallpox. We brought them measles. We brought them all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, smallpox was horrible, though.
Yeah. They had no way. Their bodies just couldn't do anything with it, So for this to be introduced into the world of Bigfoot, and like you said, many believing that the native did trade with Bigfoot way back when, and I honestly believe that this is one of the reasons why their population is so low now. I believe that this is one of the reasons why they are so hidden.
Yeah.
Because they've watched. If you put that intelligence in with Bigfoot of so many people believing that they do carry a higher intelligence than other animals, then you take that and you take the Bigfoot species of Bigfoot, and you take how long they've been here and how long they've watched and what they've seen and what they've witnessed, then I could see why they would not be interacting with the human population, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, during the 1770s, that's a single decade, 10 years, smallpox killed at least 30% of the Native Americans living on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Which means the Pacific North, Sasquatch homeland, Washington, right. Oregon, Northern California. So Bigfoot, even if they weren't interacting with the Native Americans, if they were just observing and living around them, they're going to see 30% dead. And that's not including something that I didn't really think about whenever you're reading this stuff. That's the percentage that was killed. There's still the percentage that are left disabled forever, or sick and, all these other things. And I don't find it a far stretch to think that Bigfoot would observe that and see, like, okay, this happened whenever they traded with these people or got these things. We need to avoid those things.
Right.
And domesticated animals was one of those things.
Yeah.
Whenever you and I were talking, you were talking about your trip to Africa and everything, about dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs, Native Americans had dogs, but Europeans had dogs as well that were domesticated.
Right.
So you're introducing new disease through the dogs, through the canines. And now look at the stories that you have about Bigfoot and dogs.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, when you really sit down and you really dive into this country, the diseases that have been swept through this country and what we've brought, when you really sit down and look at everything, you can tie it into Bigfoot. You can bring Bigfoot, you can bring Sasquatch into this conversation as to why, their population is as low as it is, why it's not higher than what we believe it to be,
right.
So.
And we have to look at, they're unprovable claims at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's enough evidence supporting, in some rare circumstances, that Bigfoot at least attempt to interact on some level with humans.
Yeah.
Humans they trust.
Yeah.
That don't pose any threats. I know that that's a big part of what's going on with you and Kane right now in your research.
Mm-hmm.
You also have many instances of Bigfoot using some sort of language to communicate with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the findings that you and Kane are having are opening doors to other possibilities that really shed a light on the amount of intelligence that these things could have.
Yeah.
So one would have to ask, I know there's a lot of people, whenever you ask them, are they, what are they? They say some sort of human.
Mm-hmm.
So why do they avoid us? Why do they stay hidden? Well, what's the reason behind that? And I think this historic fact of, the disease and the wiping out of Native Americans and I think that's a huge culprit that, really needed to be paid attention to.
Yeah. I mean, carnage, no matter how you look at it, they've witnessed this, throughout the centuries. And so, why the hell would they, why would they want to be around something like that? They wouldn't, and and what Kane and I are doing and what we're finding out and what we are collecting data with and figuring out of how high does their intelligence go. And if we are correct, later on down the road, if we find out that, yes, this is true, then they have that intelligence to say, no, stay away from them. So it's a huge, it's like, it's opening up Pandora's box, really. I mean, when you get into something like this, there's so many different directions we could go with it. But I'm looking at it at them witnessing, through centuries, and their culture hasn't changed one bit.
None.
They have not evolved like we have evolved, through the ages, of you take, from the 1500s to 2020, and how we've evolved. They have stayed exactly how they were then. Their culture has not changed at all, one bit. So I wouldn't want my culture to change either, if I've witnessed all of this,
right.
I would want it to stay exactly the way it is, and not have anything, interrupt it.
Well, let me read this little blurb that I got about the disease and the type of decimation they would have witnessed. Many Native American tribes experienced great depopulation, averaging 25 to 50% of the tribe's members lost to disease. Additionally, smaller tribes neared extinction after facing a severely destructive spread of disease. A specific example was Cortez's invasion of Mexico. Before his arrival, the Mexican population is estimated to have been around 25 to 30 million people. 50 years later, that's one generation, the Mexican population was reduced to 3 million, mainly by infectious disease.
Jesus.
I mean, 30 million to 3 million.
Yeah.
Within a one generation span, one lifetime, 50 years. I don't think I would ever come around this.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, you're talking, that's almost a small country. That's like wiping out a small country. I mean, literally just annihilating it.
And then if that disease did cross over into the Bigfoot population and had similar, if not more severe, because think, that was a long time ago, but they had some medicine. They had some idea of healthcare in a certain situation.
Right.
Where Bigfoot's just out in the woods.
Yeah.
Using whatever food and water sources they have available. No type of medicine unless, they've figured it out on their own to eat certain plants or whatever. Certainly nothing that they could do over a large population, though.
Right. No, not at all. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around 50 million to 3 million. Yeah. I mean, that's, you can't even fathom that. I mean, you can't, so when you get to when you talk Bigfoot, you talk, well, let me ask you something. Where are you at with a number of population of Bigfoot in the United States? Do you have like some sort of number where you think they are population wise?
I would have to do the math again, but the number gets bigger the more you think about it.
Yeah.
In my mind, each state that has a Bigfoot population, I mean, you have to have a breeding population.
Right.
So I don't know what the science is behind actual numbers for a breeding population, but my numbers have always been, okay, you need at least 50.
Yeah.
So if each state, and that excludes Hawaii and that excludes Rhode Island, has 50, that's still a large number that you're talking about, but nothing compared to the population of, say, a black bear,
right,
or any other animal. So it's a tiny number.
Yeah. And that's funny because I've never asked you this question before. And honestly, I was around 80 to 100. So fairly close.
Yeah.
To that.
I mean, some states are going to have more, some are going to have less, but 50 to 100 on average. And that's just in, the United States. That doesn't include North America as a whole. Right.
Yeah. So then you take that and let's throw the everything that this country has witnessed through its time of us coming over and throwing disease in there, and then put a number of population of Bigfoot pre us hitting this rock. See, I
wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
The numbers are so big and it's so widespread. I mean, this right here, we were talking about smallpox. In summer 1639, a smallpox epidemic struck the Huron natives in the St. Lawrence and Great Lakes regions. The disease had reached the Huron tribes through traders returning from Quebec and remained in the region throughout the winter. When the epidemic was over, the Huron population had been reduced to roughly 9,000 people, about half of what it had been before 1634. The Iraqi people faced similar losses. That's just one round.
Yeah.
And it cut them in half.
Yeah.
And that was brought from traders.
Right.
And we're talking, like you talked about, the trade and everything, how it spread. That was another interesting example because, they traded all kinds of goods and they would have these big annual meetups in an area where tribes from all over would meet up at the same time and trade with one another.
Right.
So it's not just, yes, the Europeans bring it over, and the trading with the Europeans and the interactions and everything else. If a dog or a horse or, some domesticated animal had a disease that the natives didn't have and they stole it or traded or bought it or whatever. Now that animal, they're bringing that into their animals and into their tribe. It has, there's a million ways it can be spread.
Oh yeah.
And then you add, okay, well now this, band has it and they travel, 200-300 miles and hook up with this other band to trade. And now they're trading stuff that's infected and it just goes on and on and on and on. Then you can add Bigfoot into the mix. If they come in and steal a pig that's infected,
right,
or a chicken or a horse or whatever, and now they're taking it back to their clan, it could wipe out the entire clan.
Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely it could. So as a person and with intelligence, and you see this sweeping across a nation, what would you do? You would run. You would run and you would hide. You would go where there's nobody with that issue or those diseases that's where you would go. And that's what they did. And
they've stayed in those places.
And they've stayed. They're protected there. They know they're protected there.
Over the past 20 years, the prepping community has become huge. And people building and purchasing bug out shelters and everything else in case, the economy crashes or whatever. I think every prepper out there has a worst case scenario that they're trying to avoid or survive in the case that it happens. But, I'm not part of that community, but I've looked into it. I've researched it. I know about it. Their whole plan is the same thing.
Yeah.
Get away from the population, find a place where you have access, to game animals and vegetation you can eat and fresh water in a remote area as far away from humans as possible and hunker down.
Exactly.
If that's what we would do.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And I believe that's what they did. But now that we are growing and they're losing real estate, they're being reintroduced. We're being introduced into their, culture, and we're starting to see, people are starting to see more and more. We're starting to have more and more sightings of Sasquatch, and this is why, is because they're losing their real estate, and they don't have anywhere else to go. So they just keep pushing back and pushing back and pushing back as far as they possibly can. And one day they're not going to be able to go anywhere. I think that's one of the reasons why the sightings throughout the years has grown as much as it has, is because they're losing real estate. So it's, I don't know, man. Like I said, I mean, we're opening up a whole new different box to really look at and think of their population, of where it was and where it is now, and why. Why is it as low as it is now? And I think that this here is probably the number one cause.
It explains a lot, I think.
Yeah.
It gives an answer to several questions,
sure.
At least. Whether it's right or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
And this is talking about, the 16 and 1700s. What about now? We started out talking about the coronavirus. That's a new virus to us. We can still pass on diseases to them. They may still be avoiding us for the same reasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most definitely, Yeah, I mean, diving into this and really doing a lot of reading, I mean, with what you sent me and then other stuff that I've been reading and putting it in with, in the Bigfoot world, man, I'm just... Yeah.
Well, like you said, this is something that you had thought about previously, and it's something I had thought about previously. But with that being said, it was always, okay, I'm aware that, Europeans, settlers spread diseases to the Native Americans, and there was a huge, smallpox epidemic. And I was also aware that, unfortunately, in some situations, that was used as a biological warfare tactic.
Right.
Which is horrible, but
right.
It's fact. But I never really researched it past that.
Right.
It was always just oh, well, maybe the Bigfoot got diseases too, or saw it happening. I never really delved into it like this. And looked at the numbers and thought about the trade routes and thought about, their behavior that we hear reported today, reflecting back that this could be the causation of it.
Right.
I mean, especially the dog thing. We've always gone to, well, the dogs that alert people to their presence, that, they're shutting them up so they can sneak around, which may be the case.
Right.
Or it may be they know that, hey, dogs hang with humans and they carry diseases and they kill us.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I just, the more I'm sitting here reading as we're talking, I've got 3 different things opened up here that I'm reading, and I can just so easily put Bigfoot in this conversation as we're doing.
Here's one. Yale historian David Bryan Davis describes this as the greatest genocide in the history of man. Yet it's increasingly clear that most of the carnage had nothing to do with European barbarism. The worst of the suffering was caused not by swords or guns, but by germs. For example, by 1700, less than 5,000 Native Americans remained in the southeastern coastal region of the United States. In Florida alone, there were 700,000 Native Americans in 1520, but by 1700, the number was around 2,000.
Yeah.
In every other situation that you have in the world, that population number should have grown.
Right.
I mean, in every race, every situation, the population grows I mean, if it wasn't for, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because if it wasn't for the European medicine and everything coming over, I mean, a lot of these Native Americans would have just gone extinct.
Yeah.
Without the smallpox vaccine, like.
Yeah, they would have died off. I mean.
But they were in a situation also where they were forced to interact with the Europeans, where Bigfoot wouldn't have been.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the population of Bigfoot, even before we landed over here, was still, I believe, much smaller than, the natives that were here.
Right. I would agree.
So, but you take what you just read and the population, in Florida, and then dropped it to, whatever it was.
700,000 to 2,000.
2,000. So you take Bigfoot. I'm trying to do some math here, some, off the wall math. You can see cutting their population by 3/4.
Yeah.
Of whatever it was.
From 7,000 to 200, 250.
Yeah. Now I believe that I honestly, though, also believe that their population is growing and is coming back. I do believe that throughout the years, but when you throw a widespread or multiple widespread epidemics in the mix from, from the 1500s all the way through, all the way up, all the way up to the late 1800s. So yeah, completely or almost wiping out, their population, it probably happened. I mean, when you sit here and read everything that we're reading and what it's done to human population, and every culture, then yeah, I would say that they were they were almost extinct at one time, just from disease.
Yeah, I would say nearly wiped out.
Yeah. Now you take all the sightings that there are in the United States a year, and really break that down. I mean, you really have to be realistic, this percentage, is created in the mind, and this percentage is something else. So when you really start breaking it down and break it all the way down to, okay, this percentage had a sighting of a bipedal creature that we can't explain. We can't explain their sighting. We can't say, no, it's not what you saw. That percentage is very small.
Right.
When you really break it all down, that percentage is really small. But still, you're talking, you got to put it in your mind too. You're talking the United States. You got to think of how many, how large the United States is, and then put a population of Bigfoot and those sightings, that percentage of what are true sightings, throughout the United States. And then you try to figure, okay, a number of Bigfoot within that percentage of people, within the United States. It's not a big number, like you said. 50 to 100, per state, is I think that's very close. And you times that by, the size of the United States.
You basically end up with around 2,500 to 3,000 in the United States.
In the United States. So that's a very, very small number. Now, and that's coming back. I believe that is growing, and it's coming back. But you take out, say, 3,000, and then you look at prior to the disease and everything that was swept through this country through the years. And we've just touched on this a little bit ago, times that by 3, by 4, by so wiping it out down to 3,000, and that's obviously that's a guess. That's almost extinct. That's almost wiping out a species.
But you know what else that is? That's a small enough population where a single language could be developed and then passed on.
Most definitely could be developed and passed on. That definitely could happen.
Because that's one of the, that's also been a obstacle in everyone's Bigfooting, at least for some of us that think about it. Okay, if they are making these formations or these vocalizations that are more language based than just a vocalization, why are they doing it in Texas and in Ohio?
Right.
How did the ones in Ohio learn it? They would have had to come from a single population at some point in time.
Exactly. And that's the conversation we have had with taking what we captured and then taking what was found in Texas, and that's the exact same conversation that we had at one point. It's somewhere, they were all intermingling with one another,
right?
To create this. Now, whether or not it's the exact same language, we don't know, but we do know though that what we captured does carry syllables.
Right.
It is something. It is a language of something. You're exactly right. At some point, somewhere down the line, they were all intermixing with one another in language.
I mean, I think just from this conversation alone, one of the things that's standing out to me is what impact has humans actually had on these creatures and their behavior over time.
Right.
How much effect did we have on them to cause certain behavior patterns and certain things that we see reported today?
Right.
It really is opening Pandora's box quite a bit. I mean, something else that I've thought about just during the course of our conversation, not only disease, but another thing that we did was wipe out predators, wipe out bison populations, wipe out huge populations of animals. Yeah. That would have had a huge impact on Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be grizzly bears down here in Oklahoma and Texas and Arkansas and this whole area, and we killed them out. Wolves, same thing. Those are two apex predators that now there's a niche that can be filled.
Right.
And then the bison populations. I mean, everybody's probably seen the pictures of just the mounds of bison skulls,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're known to wiping stuff out.
We're good at it.
Yeah, that's one thing we are good at. So you take all of this, everything, what you just said with the animal population and wiping them out, with the diseases that we brought over, and you just take it all, and then you take a culture that hasn't changed, like I said, has stayed the same, has watched and witnessed everything through time. I wouldn't come out from the shadows either. I would stay exactly where I was, and that's where they're at. So I get it.
And curiosity did kill the cat.
Yeah.
So it also kind of explains why you do have possible isolated incidents where a single individual does try to interact every now and then, or trade or do whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I believe that they all hold in that aspect. They're like us. They're curious. You have those that are just laid back. You have those that are like me without my coffee in the morning, and you have those that are just completely chemically imbalanced in the head, I mean, so yeah, there's a variety of them. They all have their own, ways about them. So the ones that are curious, and those are the ones that do come in, and I believe that come in and through the evenings and when you're camping, especially the way where we camp, they're more curious in nature but they're not going to walk up and sit down, plop down at the campfire and, hey, what's up? Right. They're going to stay away. And I think that this was bred into them. I honestly believe that it was bred into them of keeping the distance. So there's so much. I mean, I could keep going and going and going with this. I could go down so many different roads. I mean,
you just opened a box of oral tradition.
Yeah.
Passing down the story to generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole nother avenue that we could take off on. I think this is a good time to wrap it up, though.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the conversation. It very enlightening for myself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think this is something that others should look into, do the research, see where you stand on it. If we understand the mistakes that we've made in the past, whether purposefully or accidental or whatever, it may allow us to come up with new ways to accomplish our goal, whatever that goal may be in the Bigfoot world. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach me at bigfootcrossroads@gmail.com. If you liked what you heard, give us a thumbs up, leave us a like, share it with your friends, leave us a comment, let us know. Till next time, see you then.